Hey guys, that's Vancouver over there. We are on Granville Island. It's such a beautiful day, and I've been riding all around with this JupiterBike Discovery X7. I'm pretty impressed with this bike. It's a folding electric bike. It's more full-size than some. They actually have the X5, which we looked at in 2019. It has 16-inch wheels versus 20, and it's not as long. It weighs about 8 pounds less. Now this one's 47.8 pounds, which if you're hearing that and you're looking at the bike, you're like, wow, it's a folding bike. That's kind of heavy. Most folding electric bikes do weigh a bit more. I mean, you think about the motor, it's probably 6 pounds right there. The battery pack, it's only like 4.5 pounds actually when you take it out of the frame, but they have to reinforce this thing to be extra strong. You got the little fenders and the light up front, and even a rear suspension. This is very unique. So having that swing arm, making this thing sturdy enough to support 265 pounds, it's a pretty impressive bike, and look at how smooth the joints and everything are here. I mean, we do have a little bit of extra width at the middle of the frame for the folding component, but it's not super big. There's not like a huge plate here, and everything else is just smooth and rounded. It looks really beautiful, and I'm told that this is made from magnesium alloy, which tends to be a little bit lighter weight than aluminum alloy. The fork, the frame, and these cast rims. So rather than using the wire spokes, they're using cast magnesium wheels, which don't tend to bend and get out of true the same way that a traditional wheel would. And that's great when you fold the bike and you transport it. It just tends to be more durable, which is the name of the game when it comes to folding bikes. So we got CST tires here. These are 20 by 2.125. They have a pretty good pressure rating, 40 to 65, so you can lower it down if you're someone who's a little bit lighter weight. The smaller wheel size, 20-inch, you've got a higher attack angle, so you feel those bumps and cracks a little bit more. Anything you can do to take the edge off is good. So lowering the tire pressure, you're not going to get as good of range and efficiency, but it's an electric bike. You're already getting a little bit of extra support. I tend to lower it down. I'm not a heavy rider. And then a little bit of extra width here, kind of a hybrid tread, and a slightly wider tire is going to give you some stability side to side, which is very nice. And then just that added comfort. Now, these tires, they are not puncture resistant. They don't have reflective sidewalls. But thankfully, the bike comes with this integrated light, which is actually pretty nice. It has like kind of a flat beam, and when you aim it down, you can actually see where you're going. It's this nice big lens. It's plastic. It's not like a name brand thing, but again, it works fairly well. And on the back side of the light, there's like this little electronic horn, which is very noticeable. So there's no bells or anything on this, but the horn is nice if you're riding in traffic and maybe you're in the city or somewhere new on a little adventure. So I'm a big fan of that, and of course I'm a fan of the fenders here too. This is going to keep that rooster tail off your back. You might be spraying into your friend's face though. It's not as super low, but I think it's going to be fairly durable. Okay, and again, that's coming back to the folding bikes and stuff. I had to mount these myself when I got the bike, just using a Phillips head screwdriver. The company does sell an optional rear rack, and they said it's rated at least 25 kilograms, which is impressive. That's above average. A lot of times rear racks, especially a folding bike and stuff, I don't think you're going to get like the full size that I think this one is, and I don't think it's going to be rated as high. If we look at the drivetrain here, 165 millimeter crank arms, forged aluminum alloy. Most crank arms for a traditionally sized bike would be 170, so a little bit shorter so you don't get the pedal strikes, because the whole bike is just a little bit lower to the ground. Kind of generic folding plastic platform pedals. Not a huge fan of these or most folding plastic pedals. They just feel a little squishy, like when you're actually pedaling on them, they're not quite as like responsive. But again, you save a couple inches on either side, and if you're trying to save space, that makes a difference. So 48 tooth steel chainring with a plastic guard. You can see it's scraped up a little bit here from folding. And then in the back, we've got a 6-speed drivetrain, and that is a freewheel, not a cassette, 14 to 28 tooth. The spread isn't very impressive, but again, it's a folding bike, and having any gears is kind of nice. Power derailleur, it's going to be this or Shimano Tourney, so just very entry-level stuff, but I love that they've got that steel derailleur guard, and you can see it's doing its job here, a little bit of scratches and stuff already on that thing. It's going to protect the motor power cable and the derailleur during shipping and during use. Now, this thing was shipped to me, and it came in a box. Didn't have any tools or anything, but you really don't need them. It's pretty much fully assembled. All you got to do is snap this handlebar on, and it has quick release. Same with the seat post right here. This is 31.6 millimeters, and I love that it's got the measurements on it, so you know where you left it if you really take this off or bring it all the way down to get it super compact during transport. That was a nice little feature. It's not a super long post. It's like, I think it's like 280 millimeters. You can see there's like a hole in the bottom here, so you could have a longer post, but be careful. You don't want to have that ramming into your swing arm. You might have to use a hacksaw. You can see someone replacing this with a suspension post, but I don't know if it's necessary. When you look at this bumper thing, which appears to be a little bit adjustable as well, I'm guesstimating like 40 millimeters of travel, and it's definitely noticeable. I mean, it's better to have that than not. But they've also got the geometry set up nicely here. Pretty tall stem, ergonomic grips. You're mostly upright, and as someone who's about 5'9" myself, I feel comfortable on this thing. I can see where I'm going. I'm not leaning forward and making my back, neck, wrists. None of that's feeling too uncomfortable. I do find myself standing up occasionally just to take the edge off when I'm going over a bigger bump. So back to the shipping thing for a second. Free shipping in the contiguous USA. I mean, that's pretty sweet for a bike that's like $1,200 and a 1-year comprehensive warranty, aside from like wear and tear parts like, you know, brake pads and stuff. That's awesome. JupiterBike's been around since 2016. I talked to the president, Rob. I actually asked him, like, what's with the company name? Like, is there a story behind this? And he said their first bike, it was like this folding scooter thing. You could fit it in a backpack, and it looked like a circle and kind of like, you know, planetary. And they were thinking futuristic and out of this world. So, you know, cool. They went with it. Let's talk about some of the other components and stuff. We've got 5-star brakes here. These are mechanical, 4 fingers. You need the extra leverage for mechanical brakes, especially on the right one. That cable has to go farther, and there's just more friction that's happening. The great thing is that both brake levers have motor inhibitors, so that it's kind of like a motor kill switch. Anytime you pull the lever, it just cuts power, so you're not fighting against the bike. I appreciate that. I like the wire wraps and stuff here. And see that their wires are not internally routed, but they're not going to get pinched as easily. So back here, kickstand plate with a magnet for when you fold it, it keeps it from coming undone. And then the calipers here, JAK Super Brake, I don't know, 160 millimeter rotors front and rear. You know, pretty good for a 20-inch wheel. You know, smaller the wheel, the better mechanical advantage for the disc brake and the hub motor. Okay, so that's pretty nice. And I love how in both cases the cable housing is pointed down, so if there's any water or residue on this, it's not gonna like drain into that housing. And then looking down at that black circular cylinder right there, the motor is inside of that thing, so it's really well protected. It's fairly quiet because just the noise doesn't really escape. It seems like it's going to be pretty durable. 350 watt planetary geared hub motor. You know, kind of standard. I don't know the peak rating or the Newton meters. When I was asking Rob questions, he wasn't trying to pad the specs or anything. He was like, you know, it's fairly efficient, and that pairs nicely with the battery, which is 36 volts, 7.8 amp hours. It's like 280 watt hours on that. Not super high capacity, but you don't want to add too much weight to these bikes. While over here, there's the joint, and there's this little rubber grommet. Just pull it out, and there's the charging port, so you don't have to take the battery off the bike to charge it. But when you take this off, I mean, I could see myself setting it there and easily forgetting it and then losing it. It'd be kind of nice if there was a leash on this thing. And then down here we've got a 12 magnet sealed cadence sensor, and I've noticed that during my ride tests, it's not the most responsive cadence sensor. Here's the trigger shifter. It's actually a big thumb shifter, a little bit more reaching to get this thing actuating. I prefer the little triggers down here, but they couldn't do that with the horn button and the twist throttle housing. It just wouldn't fit. One of the benefits of this bigger shifter is that the buttons are very separate and they're very big. So if you have gloves on, this thing is really easy to use, and it's very easy to see which gear you're into. There's no confusion. I'm going to run through folding the bike right now. What I noticed is that it's best to fold the stem first, because the cables, otherwise they don't really fold perfectly. a little bit precarious making that happen. And it's because the bike kind of leans to the side, and as you can see, the front portion of the bike's a little bit longer, so it just tilts a little bit. There is a wheel down here that's supposed to kind of protect the bike. A lot of other folding bikes will have a piece of metal, like a little bar that it sits on, but then the paint gets chipped up and stuff. I think this is a nice solution, but it doesn't actually roll very easily when it's folded, just because of the orientation here. So we have a 2-amp charger over here, very small, compact, very lightweight. This weighs less than a pound. It's just got the barrel plug, so you can plug directly into the battery, or you can charge it while it's on the bike. When I received this bike, I noticed that the headset was a little bit rattly, and so what I did was loosen that bolt there and that one there, and then I was able to tighten this one, and it sort of pushes, it compacts that headset, and then I got the rattles out, and then I tightened the sides again. So if you're someone like me, you notice a little bit of rattle. The bike is still rideable and everything, but that was just one of the little things I did. Okay, let's power this thing on. We're just gonna press the M button, one of 3 buttons, very simple. Hold it for a few seconds, comes to life. I love that it has battery percentage and a 10-bar infographic, so it's a little bit more precise. Hopefully this is fairly accurate. I would try that out a few times and get a feel for the bike before you go on those really long adventures. Down here we've got current speed. It's in miles per hour, but I'll show you how to change to kilometers per hour later. Starts in assist level 1 every time. Again, that throttle is active, but since it's limited by assist, this is like a low level of assist. And it even works in 0, which is kind of interesting. So, you know, down here we've got trip distance, odometer, it's like total distance, and time. It's like a trip timer, and then it just cycles back to the beginning. This is backlit. It's sort of a light white, which in daylight seems fine, but kind of bright. So if it was at night, that could be a little bit like overwhelming. Maybe I'd try to swivel it forward. And you do need to remember to hold plus to turn the headlight on. It doesn't just turn on automatically. You have to do that every time. And here's a shot of that headlight. It's pretty good for what it is. And again, I actually like the display. Despite being not removable and not having any USB ports or anything, it's very functional and reachable. And then hold plus and minus if you want to get into the settings menu, which is not labeled super well. You just kind of click through. P1 is where you change from miles to kilometers. All the other ones, I'm not really sure. They probably have to do with wheel size and number of assist settings and stuff. Here we go. Trying to do throttle only. Not bad. The hill climb, you know, I went down the grass just to kind of test out the shock absorber and stuff, and the brakes, they did fine, and then the little hill climb there. So I'm in the highest level of assist. I want you to see and hear the motor at its fullest. I'm just gonna start pedaling. Bit of time to catch on. It just takes a little bit longer than some of the other pedal assist sensors I've tested. Even in a low gear, I'm in 1 purposefully so that I'm spinning quickly, so it would catch quickly. Let's try it again. Yeah, it just seems to take a couple revolutions versus maybe half a revolution. And there's a little bit of rattling going on. I'm not sure if that's the battery inside the frame. I don't think it's the fenders. The bike feels very secure, but just listen for this. Maybe it's the stem. I was able to go much faster earlier just coasting down a hill, and I felt fine. But yeah, about 16, they say 16 to 18 miles per hour top speed. Do a little brake test here. Very smooth. Might need to adjust those brakes a little bit. They're coming almost all the way in, just straight out of the box. So you can loosen this barrel adjuster here, and it sort of increases the length, the effective length of the housing, and that's gonna make it grab a little bit earlier for you. You definitely notice the suspension. It actually works. Try that horn. Nice. Very audible, even in the noisy city environment. Guys, that's the JupiterBike Discovery X7. I thought this was a really cool bike, and sometimes, you know, you're not sure what to think when you got a low price point, but considering that the company's been around for a while and that the thing is just so refined, and all the specs and everything are back at ElectricBikeReview.com as usual. I've got a comparison tool. You can see some of the other folding electric bikes. I do my best to be just thorough and objective. I love you guys. I hope I see you out there. Ride safe.